I'm not saying that he doesn't like white people. I'm saying he has a problem. This guy is, I believe, a racist.
What? Y'all gon' make me lose my mind. Up in here, up in here. Y'all gon' make me go all out. Up in here, up in here.
He is post-racial by all appearances. I forgot he was black tonight for an hour.
We've already donated to Haiti. It's called the U.S. income tax.
What? Y'all gon' make me lose my mind. Up in here, up in here. Y'all gon' make me go all out. Up in here, up in here.
It is as though we're still on a plantation.
Warren Ballentine, the number one truth fighter in America.
All right. I have a very special guest coming on. All right. My very special guest, this brother, man, look, created one of the biggest hedge funds in America. Young black man, 30, under 30, ebony featured. I mean, he was rubbing elbows with the elite of the elite. And I just wanted to bring him on to tell his side of the story because I understand when you're doing moves like this, people get jealous. People want to bring you down. Welcome to the show, Fredrick Scott. Fredrick, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, Warren. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, brother. Now, I want to ask you about how you created the hedge fund. How hard was it to create? But more importantly, I just want to say this, man. Tell your story, what really happened, not what the media put out there, because I know the media sensationalized the story on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So basically, first of all, it's not easy to even start a hedge fund and moreover, transition from that into an investment banking and advisory firm. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of hard work. Through my relationships, my ex-wife's family, there were Italian diplomats and politicians in Italy, and they seeded my hedge fund when I first started with $30 million. I traveled around the world learning this business. And mind you, I don't have a college degree. I came from nothing. Okay. My mom was a single parent. She was on drugs, and I'm the oldest of three. I worked really hard to get where I am. And, I ended up growing my investment banking and advisory firm when I transitioned to $3.7 billion in assets under management. And that's still public in the SEC database. So that's still public record. Moreover, I was the youngest African-American hedge fund founder in history. It had never been done. And based on how large my investment banking and advisory firm was, I was actually effectively the largest African-American owned investment banking and advisory firm by assets under management in the country. And I was only 28. And, when you're doing that, to be clear and to be very straightforward, I was a very arrogant young man. I thought that, I could do anything I wanted to do, say whatever I wanted to say. And let's be clear, Wall Street, if you know anything about Wall Street, there's a lot of things that go on Wall Street, but at the end of the day, I pissed the wrong people off, unfortunately. And the FBI ended up in my office. They charged me with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Mind you, charged. I was never indicted. To this day, I have never been indicted.
Right.
That means a jury of my peers never indicted me. There was not enough evidence. They said that they had been following me since 2011, investigating me from 2011. Mind you, I got arrested January 4th of 2013. So how is it that you don't compile enough evidence in that amount of time to seek an indictment from a jury? Let's start there. They charged me with conspiracy to commit wire fraud. I'm the only one on my case. Federal law says conspiracy is two or more.
Right.
Now they claim unindicted co-conspirators, but no one else was charged. You can't be a co-conspirator unless you're charged.
Right.
You have to be charged of a crime. So at the end of the day, they arrested me on June 4th, 2013. After 60 days and being in federal prison, they still couldn't return an indictment. They come to me and they tell me, they say, you're going to waive your right to indictment and plead guilty on a prosecutor's information. I told them, I said, no, I'm not. I'm going home. They said, no, you don't understand. We know that your wife, because I was still married at the time, is in the middle of her green card process right now. We'll charge her along with you. We'll notify the Department of Homeland Security that we've charged her with a federal complaint, and then they'll void her green card application and we'll deport her. Well, we have 3 children together. What am I supposed to do? So I waived my right to indictment, pled guilty on a prosecutor's information because I refused to cooperate with the federal authorities because on Wall Street, trust is everything, right? So I would never cooperate.
Right.
Instead of probation or a year and a day that I could have got, they gave me 63 months. I did almost 5 years in federal prison. Now, mind you, I'm a former Army veteran. At that, I have a nonprofit organization, which they won't even allow me to run right now because they feel that I shouldn't be handling anyone else's money in any capacity while I'm on supervised release, because I'm on supervised release currently. So my nonprofit organization, which has been around since 2011, which is a civil service organization with the United Nations, has had to temporarily suspend operations while I step down as the chairman. That is my reality. You know, they dogged me in the press. They called me the Black Bernie Madoff. They called me the bow tie con. Now, this is 24 hours after I've been arrested. I haven't been indicted. I've just been charged. I haven't pled guilty to anything at this point in time, but they tainted the jewelry pool. What they did was they put it all over the media. So that way I was guilty long before I would have ever had an opportunity to fight anyway.
Brother, you ain't got to tell me. I went through the same damn thing. You ain't got to tell me. I put $1 million in a black-owned bank. Next thing I know, they was knocking at my door talking about I was the ringleader of a $30 million scheme. I've been there, done that. I understand.
Right.
I understand.
And so a guy who had never crossed the street the wrong way, the only thing they could find in my entire record was speeding tickets that were paid. So a guy who had never crossed the street the wrong way, right, ended up doing almost 5 years in federal prison for something they didn't have evidence for something that they couldn't indict me for. And now, you know, I've got all these restrictions on things I can do. They completely destroyed my reputation because I was a young black man in this country that had done something that had never been done before. And I was teaching other people in our community how to do the same thing.
Brother, I know.
The problem.
I know.
And that's the problem in this. That's the problem in this country. If you're African American in this country, the reality of the situation. Let me tell you something my grandfather once told me. He said, "As long as you are African American in this country, you will always be on the plantation, and don't you ever forget it." And he was right. I mean, I did everything that I could the right way. I built my business from the ground up. I fought and scratched and clawed against people that didn't want to see me make it. I overcome every obstacle, and yet and still, I ended up in federal prison for something that they didn't even have evidence for. The reality of the situation is if you're black in this country, they want to come after you. Well, guess what? As I tell people now, I'm everywhere. I've been everywhere you want to be and everywhere you don't. I'm not afraid of these people anymore, which is why I'm speaking out even though I'm on supervised release. I'm going to use my voice.
Let me ask you this, because see,
go ahead.
For me, it's not even about the interview. It's about this for me. How can I help you? How can I help? Because see, to me, I've been where you are, and to the point where I'm about to file a $20 million lawsuit against the federal government because of what they did to me. So I've been where you are. So my point is, how can I help you? What can I do?
Raising awareness, like no one can protect us better than we can. It's people like you and I who have the knowledge, who have the expertise, who have the understanding, who has been through this before, who can prevent our community from having to go through these things. It's time for us to take our leadership positions like we're supposed to raise our voices as social activists, as philanthropists, and as business-minded people, and unify our community, both not just with our voices and marching, but with our capital, with our resources, because the reality of the situation, life happens to everyone. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how wealthy you are. I don't care what your skin color is. Life happens to everyone. The key is how you respond.
Fredrick, do me one favor. I'm up against a commercial break. Let me go into the commercial spot. I'll bring you back, and then we'll close this out, and then if you got a website, anything going on where the listeners can come and find out more about this and support you. Because, see, brother, I want us to become friends. I want to help you any way I can help you. That's real talk.
And I thoroughly appreciate that one.
Hold on one second, Fredrick. We'll be right back. You listen to the WB.
There's so many young people dying in the streets, and education is a way to change that and opportunity. Mr. President, how do we emphasize this?
Well, look, the most important thing starts with parenting. Talking to young people constantly about the need to be focused on education. The second thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we've got great teachers in the classroom.
What I want you to take seriously is what we have to do for the youth.
Carry on the struggle.
Warren Ballentine, coast to coast and around the world.
Your child is my child is your child. We should be looking out for each other's kids and working together to make sure that all these kids have a great opportunity, even if they come from a household that's not perfect.
Warren, I completely agree.
Join the Truth Fighters in full effect right now.
All right. For everybody who's just joining us and just tuning in, I'm talking with Fredrick Scott. Let me give you just kind of quick synopsis for what you missed. This brother had one of the biggest hedge funds ever and was one of the youngest people to do it. Not just African American, just one of the youngest people to do it, period. Now, the federal government came in and literally arrested this man with no indictment. Then they said that he was conspiring to do something, but he had no co-conspirators, which means how can you be guilty of conspiring to break the law on a conspiracy charge, but you ain't even got nobody you working with? You conspiring with yourself? I mean, it's amazing. Then they threatened to revoke his wife's green card unless he pleads guilty to something. And he sits in jail for 5 years in a federal penitentiary for nothing he did wrong himself. Fredrick, is that pretty much what we covered in the first segment?
That's pretty much the sum of it.
And see,
that's pretty much the sum of it.
It's really making me mad because it's clear that the problem wasn't that you were doing anything wrong. The problem was you was helping other people figure out what to do right. That was the problem.
You know, they have always, in one way, shape, or form, martyred anyone in our community that has tried to stand up and bring our community together, help our community progress, and overcome the obstacles and situations that, you know, the what we'll call powers that be try to throw in our way to prevent us from being successful. You know, we were never supposed to be citizens in this country. We were brought over here as property. And now that we have citizenship and, you know, we start doing well for ourselves and, you know, you get people that speak out, that educate the community. You do too much of that, you start speaking out on the things that are wrong, pointing out things and showing our community how to do better. They come after you every time.
Absolutely.
But I'm not. I'm going to fight. I'm not laying down because I care about my community too much. And I'm not going to let these people silence my voice. I have a First Amendment right to free speech, and you better believe that I'm going to use it. I'm going to use my knowledge, my resources, my skill set to better our community. And I want all of us to come together as knowledgeable, you know, African American males and females and work together to strengthen and better our community. You know, it's funny. I wrote a blog on my personal website for all of you guys who don't have it. It's fredrickdscott.com. I wrote a blog specifically about, you know, what other communities have done, such as the Jewish community, the LGBTQ community, et cetera, that have gotten them, you know, where they are, and some of the things that we can do, and to get where we need to be. And so, you know, feel free to, for all of you guys that are listening, go to fredrickdscott.com. Feel free to subscribe to the newsletter, kind of, you know, check out my website, read the blogs. You know, I blog once a week. You know, and this stuff here, it's near and dear to my heart. It's so very, very important, you know?
Fredrick, you know, before I go, I'm going to say this, man. I want my people to give you my cell number. I want you to reach out to me. And if I can help, like I said, I want to help you, man, because I understand the struggle. I understand that this, and see, I try to explain this to people all the time. This legal system, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, but she's not blind. She's subjective. She's subjective to who she chooses to go after and do things to. Now, a lot of folks that hear this and say, well, I just can't believe the legal system is like this. Look, you don't even have to go to a federal level or dealing with money or helping black people. Just go sit in your local state government house and look at who comes in for court and what they're charged with. They do this on a daily basis just for a routine traffic stop. If the cop is having a bad day, they will charge you with a resisting arrest. They will charge you with all kind of extra charges beside the speeding ticket to make sure you have a criminal record. People don't understand that this happens every day, but it happens every single day. Every single day.
And it's very true. And it is. And it's going to continue to happen unless we stand up and fight and not allow them to continue to do this to us. Like, we have to stand up. We can't keep expecting these. These are the same people that, less than 100 years ago were whipping us and putting fire hoses on us and shooting us point blank range. I mean, they're killing us today. They're shooting us like animals in the street because they think they can. If we don't come together and we don't unify and we don't stand up, they're going to continue to do these things. First it was slavery, then it was Jim Crow, then it was mass incarceration, and now they feel like they could just shoot us like dogs. And if you're not in a position where they can shoot you down like a dog physically, then they try to shoot you down economically. They try to hold you back. They try to incarcerate you. Like, it is crazy to think that we have 5% of the world's population, that we have 25% of the world's prison population, and almost half of that prison population is African American.
Well, Fredrick,
that's a problem.
Fredrick, I agree with you, but let me say this. You know why I keep saying, "How can I help you"? Do you understand? Do you know why I keep saying that?
I'd love for you to tell me, Warren. I really would.
I keep asking you, "How can I help you?" Because when I was going through my thing, look, prior to me going through my thing, I was helping National Action Network. I was helping Urban League. I was on CNN with Don Lemon. I was doing Fox News. When all this stuff happened, right? And you know this from going through this. When it happens, you can't even say nothing, because if you say something, they put you in jail for talking. So I couldn't even go publicly and say I was innocent or what was really going on. So I called all these people who I thought were my friends, who I thought would have my back. Not one of them did a legal defense fund for me. None of them went and talked on their shows for me. They all turned their back on me, like I didn't exist. Like I didn't even exist. And I had went above. I did stuff behind the scenes for Don Lemon I knew Don Lemon was gay 4 years before the world did. I'm part of the reason he came out, because I was like, Don, the people who love you are going to support you no matter what. No matter what. These people, you my little brother, and I got your back, and I got your back. When all this hit the fan, I called all of them to the point where I texted them and was like, look, man, I need to feed my daughter. I will sweep at National Action Network. I will mop at Urban League. Nobody called me back. Not one person.
I was on the Economic and Development panel for National Action Network in 2013, right before I got arrested. Let me tell you, I had a PR firm representing me before I went to prison. The federal government went to that PR firm because I had given them $80,000 and basically said, if they don't back off, because I was going to issue a press release from prison and talk about this. They were like, if you don't back off, we're going to audit your financials and come after that $80,000. They completely blocked me. They stopped talking to me. So I just basically sat in prison with no way to speak up, no way to fight back, no way to do anything while they destroyed my name in the press. That's reality.
Yep, it happened to me. That's why I keep saying to you, how can I help? Because see, I know how if it wasn't for my listeners who are family to me, I never would have made it, man. Between them and my family, I never would have made it, because everybody else in the media who I had helped, that I had went and did their event. Look, I did their events for free because I was in my mind, I'm trying to help black people. And if they're doing something to help black people, I'm going to go help too. And I don't want to get paid for it because it's about the people. Man, look. These jokers wouldn't do a defense fund for me. They didn't say, hey, I know you got a daughter. Do you need some food to feed her? They didn't care if my lights was on, my water was on. Nothing. And see, the part that was hard for me is because of the way I am. If this would have happened to them, I'd have been on the radio every day raising money, and I'd have been trying to find every way I could to help their family. Nobody did that for me. Nobody.
Right. And the worst case is, and this is the biggest problem, we got this bourgeois element in the African American community that feels like because they have a little status and a little money, they feel like that they got to kowtow and shuck and jive for old master and all of that. So now all of a sudden they're your friends right up until something happens. And now all of a sudden they don't know you anymore when something goes wrong. And the worst case scenario is, and you got to be really careful. And this is why someone once told me, you got to be careful who you give access to. Because I tell you, this bourgeois community that we have, that little segment we have in the African American community will cut your throat faster than a white person will.
Absolutely, Fredrick. We up against the break. Go to fredrickdscott.com. Sign up for the newsletter, for the blog. Fredrick, please, I'm going to get my people to give you my number. Please reach out to me, brother. Like I said, anywhere I can help. And when you go, I heard you're supposed to be doing Don Lemon's show. Tell Don I said hello since he won't return any of my texts because I guess I'm damaged goods. I guess I don't know.
I definitely will, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, Fredrick, appreciate you, brother.